Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this the Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And today we are going to go through an entire double bill of politics show Vox Pops, where they went round the Labour conference asking members there what they think of Keir Starmer. Now there are two lots of videos and we'll go with the order in which they were released. So first up, they asked young Starmerites why they hate Corbyn, and in turn I imagine this will also get them onto the opinion of Starmer, because I'll be honest with you, I have literally no idea what anyone sees in Starmer. However, I am fully on board with people who prefer Starmer to Corbyn, so take it away.
What good is Stormzy endorsing you if it doesn't get you elected?
Okay, not exactly the strongest start in the world, though it is a good question. Even if you can get all these high-profile people and celebrities to support you, what does it matter if you can't win an election? Because bear in mind, he lost two. And one of those he lost to Theresa May, which I think most people look back on that election in hindsight and realise people weren't particularly pro-May, they were vehemently anti-Corbyn. I know I was. And I knew plenty of people in the boomer generation who were even looking in advance of effectively how to move their money and their life out the UK if Corbyn got in. There was massive hatred for Corbyn, and it was obviously fully justified.
I think Keir Starmer was so inspiring in the manner at which he changed the Labour Party.
Yeah, this was about the level of analysis I was expecting here. This is probably going to be worse than your average boomer doing a Vox Pop. Starmer didn't particularly change the Labour Party, he just stopped momentum from having control of it. What he effectively did was try and keep the Blairite train going. The only reason Corbyn got in is because Ed Miliband was an idiot and reduced membership prices for Labour down to £3, allowing for pretty much every student and their cat to become a Labour member, which in turn meant that there was a massive young people voting bloc who were just coming out of uni or still in uni, who had no idea how the world worked, saw that Magic Grandpa was going to give them a load of free stuff and so voted for him. And yet Labour appeared to learn that that is not the way to win elections. I think they still would have lost against Sunak if they kept Corbyn in charge. And bear in mind, this was recorded 3 days ago. This is after all the sleaze has come out. So, again, I don't know why he'd be saying, oh, their image is so much more positive now. Because, again, I don't understand who actually likes Starmer. The only image they have at the moment is that they are as bad as the Tories. Okay, they didn't take as high bribes as the Tories, and they didn't get into corruption scandals as much as the Tories did, but they've only been in charge for 3 months. Tories were in charge for 14 years. Of course they were ramping up the corruption. Labour has seen as bad of them in 3 months, and people know that's only going to get worse.
What I will say is under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, the party could be quite a hostile environment for young members. The anti-Semitism crisis was horrendous.
Yeah, sorting out the anti-Semitism crisis, that was a good thing. Finally, something that I can understand why someone would like Starmer. The party being hostile to young people during Corbyn's tenureship, though, I don't think so. The problem was that it was too welcoming to young people, if you ask me.
This is not the same party as under Corbyn. We vote, we are one, we are unified.
I'm pretty sure he said that on the day of the conference where they voted against the winter fuel payments for pensioners being rejected by the membership. How can you possibly say the party's united when the members of parliament are doing one thing while the members don't want it? That is the opposite of unified.
I've gone through the phase of being extremely socialist, being, shouting out at the world. And I think Corbyn attracts those kind of people.
Well, yeah, duh, but then it really does beg the question, okay, how are you different to the Lib Dems or the left wing of the Tories? Like, seriously, even people I talk to in real life, when I say, oh, Tories are just Labour going the speed limit, they laugh and say, yeah, that's quite true, actually. So, when people are complaining about the Tories because of the direction they're going, and then it turns out that Labour are just in the same direction but quicker, what are you supporting? What is it that's actually attracting you that wasn't already out there? Because as I say, most other parties have this exact same outlook. Even the SDP effectively want the same thing.
I must admit, when I was younger, when I was about 15, I did quite like Corbyn.
Yeah, well, if you promise free stuff, of course you're going to like the person who's handing out free stuff.
Under Jeremy Corbyn, the number of young people joining the Labour Party soared.
Yeah, again, that's because the barrier to entry was £3 Great British pounds, which again, with the way inflation's gone, that's probably closer to £2 these days.
But Keir Starmer's leadership hasn't inspired the same result. Gone are the days of Glastonbury.
See, it's another thing that I see from a lot of people who voted Labour. They all thought this was cringe. They did not like Jeremy Corbyn. I think they found the blurred lines between entertainment and celebrity status and politicians was quite disturbing and just a bit grim. In fact, my sister was at Glastonbury at the time, and from the sounds of it, she was just having to ask everyone, why the hell is he here? And she has quite a few left-wing friends, and effectively they just said, well, he's basically a celebrity who's a politician. And again, you kind of ask these people, well, why do you like him so much? Effectively, it just comes down to, well, he's promising to improve the economy, which then translates into, he was going to give me free stuff. I suppose to be fair as well with Corbyn, he was very different from your new Labour type and your Tory type, obviously, in that he effectively, he did try and put on this working class persona, if there's a better word for it, more than anyone else in politics. He would not dress in suits all the time. He had allotments that he was photographed at constantly. And to be absolutely fair to him, you could tell that he didn't have much media training. He did seem to say a lot that comes from the heart, and I suppose people like that authenticity. The problem was that everyone else in Britain saw it was authentic too and realised, oh my god, he was a communist, and so obviously voted against that.
If you talk to members and activists, one thing that they'll say after the 2019 general election, no one expected a Labour government in 5 years, let alone even 10 years. So to see Keir Starmer change the party in the way that he did, the direction that he took it was the right direction, because look now, he's delivered a smashing mandate.
Again, this is recorded after all of the Sleazegate stuff, whatever you want to call it. Is it Clothing-gate? I can't even remember. There are so many scandals going on, I cannot remember which one we're on. But as I said at the beginning, an awful lot of this will just be vibes. Pretty much every conference has quite a positive feeling to it. It gets people upbeat, which is absolutely fine. But what I will say is that young people tend to ride those trains quite a bit more. And so when you listen to these people, I am not expecting much substance whatsoever, but I am very happy to see young people bashing Corbyn. That is warming my heart. We appear to be going past the age of taking socialism seriously. Of course, that depends how much the Greens grow over the next 5 years, because Labour are going to have, I predict, a bigger implosion than the Tories.
So I joined in 2017, but then my membership did lapse because I wasn't particularly happy with the direction the party was going in because of anti-Semitism. So I have some friends who are Jewish and I could see how they were feeling within the Labour Party. But I rejoined in 2019 when I could see where things were going. And I actually voted for Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner to be the leader and deputy leader. And
to be fair, this is the most substance you're probably going to get. I have Jewish friends who didn't like the anti-Semitism in the party. Anti-Semitism goes, oh, I like Starmer for that. I suppose that's absolutely fine. I just wish there was something a little more on the side of, oh, I really like Starmer's vision. Oh, what's that? I can't answer it for you because I have no idea. I was hoping that some of these people would tell me.
Because I could see that they were the people that would be able to drive this party forward into a better direction. And at the moment, they've taken us into government, which nobody would have foreseen, really, considering where we were in 2019. And I'm really happy with the direction that we're going in at the moment.
So you already fell back onto the, oh, I really like the direction we're going. What direction would that be? This is the thing. Every Tory member that I met and that was interviewed in these Vox Pops could tell you exactly what direction Liz Truss was going in. Oh, cutting regulation, that's great. Oh, cutting taxes, getting rid of IR35. These are all good things that are pro-business, that will incentivise businesses to grow and incentivise investment into business as well. You need that because the bigger your businesses grow, the more revenue you can get from them, even if you cut their taxes. And that's just one of a few reasons that people wanted Liz Truss in charge, me included. You listen to these people, it's just a general vibe thing. Oh, the direction's nice, isn't it? And the only thing of substance I've got so far is the Jew hatred's gone. Which is good, but I wouldn't vote a man in to be my Member of Parliament based on that.
I joined the Labour Party on my 14th birthday, which is as young as you can, so I'm a bit of a nerd. But I joined because of the power of the last Labour government. that lifted children out of poverty, that made things better, created opportunities for my generation.
Okay, so this is a new Labour fan. At least that's something concrete. Though I would push back on these claims that the country got better under him necessarily. Okay, children were lifted out of poverty. Well, they kept redefining poverty. Okay, better opportunities for people. Yes, more people had ended up going to uni, but again, I bring these stories up all the time. I know people who went to uni and it effectively just turned into a waste of time. And now they will get less income for literally the rest of their working lives. Okay, we've had 14 years of Tory governments, but they were mostly carrying on these types of policies, so I don't think it's fair to fully blame them for that, but they certainly didn't necessarily improve all this. My God, though, as it turns out, 3 months in, it turns out, yeah, maybe I should have voted Tory. This is only getting worse.
You said that you were a member of the Labour Party. When and why did you join?
I joined around Partygate, sort of. When was that? 2021. And I was so angry about that I was like, I really, really want to see some change now.
I don't even know very many people that still go on about Partygate. The only person I know who really, really cares about Partygate is one of my aunties because she couldn't see her her grandkids for months on end because of the lockdown. Then obviously Partygate happens. And she is very much in the mindset that Boris Johnson just didn't care about the rules, thought he was above the law, things like that, which I've not really got into conversation about it with her, but it is not quite what happened. But aside from that, from a very understandable kind of, there's logic in that hatred from all the information she has, I don't really know anyone else that really cares about Partygate these days. Everyone just kind of knows the Tories were full of scandals 14 years in. But those same people seem to understand that Keir Starmer is no better. So I'm kind of interested to see that this guy thought the Partygate scandal was absolutely awful. And now it turns out, Keir Starmer was not following the rules either because it turns out he was in Lord Ali's place while literally making a public announcement video saying stay in your homes. He literally wasn't even at home for that.
I joined the Labour Party at the end of 2020. I have to say, I think part of the factor of me joining was that I was just really upset with the Conservatives and the direction that they were heading our kind of country in. I was really upset with their kind of ultra-nationalist, kind of very populist rhetoric.
Okay, at least he ended that sentence with rhetoric. Because if he was going to say policies, I was going to go mad. Rwanda, they didn't even get a plane off the ground. I think they deported 3 or 4 people, but it doesn't matter. Ultra-nationalism, making sure people who shouldn't be crossing a border are not crossing a border. Okay, interesting point of view. But again, as I say, when it comes to policies, it was completely different to their rhetoric, and this guy only mentioned the rhetoric, so fine, whatever, I guess. Yes, they were throwing out red meat with their speeches, but my God, if you think that's ultra-nationalist, man, you do not know people in the areas of social media that frequent Telegram.
Really inspired by Keir Starmer's leadership, and he had modernised the party back into a kind of more moderate force, which I think is personally better for the party and better for the country.
In terms of economics, I'd give it that, but in terms of culture, not so much. I consider it extreme to kneel for BLM. But the Starmer government's bringing in the ethnicity wage gap that has to be sorted out as well. The Rwanda policy they're getting rid of to try and smash the gangs instead. Nothing's been done about that so far, despite the fact it's been set up. And then they looked at deporting people back to Albania anyway as a safe third country. It's just ridiculous. There was no plan. It's become pretty obvious there. Hence, in pretty much every department, there has been a letter written, the most obvious example of this being Ed Miliband writing to the Department for Energy Security, asking them what can we actually do to have no carbon from our energy sector by 2030. He's got 5 years, 5 and a bit years if we're being generous, and he didn't even have a plan before getting in. People had a go at Nigel Farage, who had nothing to do with the government, saying, he didn't have a plan for Brexit. He had nothing to do with the Parliament or the government at all. And then Ed Miliband does something worse in that he is literally going to be the energy secretary, and he didn't have a plan for it. Just to be clear, once again, this is supposedly the adults being back in the room, the sensible people back in politics, and they don't even have a plan for the departments they know they're coming into. It's just... What's the point?
When you joined the party, did you feel particularly inspired or enthused by Keir Starmer as a leader, or was it more of like a protest to what you'd seen the Conservatives?
I think maybe I'm in a minority where I really did like Keir Starmer.
Okay, that's good. Tell me why. Tell me why.
And I mean, obviously, a lot of people did. A lot of people voted for him to be Prime Minister.
Okay, wait. Where you going, man? Tell me why you like him.
But I think it's harder as you go along as a leader. You know, there's more pitfalls to fall into.
Can't get a straight answer out of these people. Oh, I like Keir Starmer. Why? Well, he's getting worse, isn't he? What? What you on about? Literally all the positives so far. He's not Corbyn. He got rid of Jew hatred. Like, great. There is nobody here that is saying, oh, I like this policy of his. I think that's really good, innovative, and I think that's going to do well for Britain. None of that. It's all just vibes. Kids are idiots. My God, I can really tell I'm pushing 30.
Lots of young people joined the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. We haven't seen the same amount join the Labour Party under Keir Starmer. Why do you think that is?
I think Corbyn had a talent of appealing to a younger generation. I think if you look statistically, younger generations are more radical in their beliefs.
That's certainly true of the modern era. I am really sceptical about it being true of previous eras. Radicalism appears to basically be bred in universities and academic circles. Obviously, when you get more people going to university, oh wow, they're exposed to these radical circles even more. Now you've got a whole generation where half the people are radical either one way or the other. Mostly on the left wing, obviously. But it really does seem like a lot of, especially the younger Zoomers and possibly some Gen Alphas, that they are genuinely realising the indoctrination is fully upon them. I hate to give him any credit, but that's probably thanks in part to Andrew Tate. He's certainly not the best person to do this, but I suppose I'll take the wins where I can get them. Obviously, people like Jordan Peterson are better, but anyone that helps younger generations realise that, yeah, the education machine is an indoctrination machine, especially over in America, they are quite useful, I'd say.
Jeremy Corbyn is obviously felt quite countercultural, so maybe people like that, whereas...
Pretty amazing how people are trying to say Corbyn was countercultural when, you know, he got a massive cheer at Glastonbury. He was effectively the celebrity's politician of choice. Places like the BBC and things like that, they didn't particularly like him because his optics were so bad on especially geopolitics, being friends with Hamas. Obviously the anti-Semitism story was following him around everywhere. Long story short, when these people say, oh, Corbyn was taken down by the media, no, what happened is that he had an awful lot of baggage and the media just found it really easy to find it because he wasn't a smart man. He was countercultural in so far as the BBC and some other newspapers didn't particularly like him. But when most celebrities are on your side, when most of the rest of the establishment is on your side, it's quite difficult to say you're countercultural. My God, I remember being at uni. Basically everyone was either a Corbynite or didn't really care about politics and voted Tory anyway.
Keir isn't countercultural, but then sort of what good is Stormzy endorsing you?
I mean, yeah, he's just repeating points at the moment, but I'm not being funny. If the Tories didn't self-implode, I think we'd be saying the same thing about Starmer. He got endorsements from hundreds of business people, allegedly, though most of them have turned on him. Basically, all of the media wanted him, and now he's in power, and they're all now against him because nobody seemed to realise that all the media are there for is to be anti-whoever's in Parliament. That seriously appears to be their only point.
There's obviously been a lot of young people put off by the Gaza stuff, and that is regrettable. I think they're sort of taking quite a strong stance.
Yeah, but seriously, I mean, who really cares? I mean, I don't mean this in a particularly nice way, but every person who has been interviewed so far is an idiot. Or maybe that is being too harsh. Maybe not idiot, but they are certainly going forward with the mindset of, I have this conclusion, i.e. my political positions first, and everything else has to make a narrative around that. And from what I can tell, the problem is that, well, not an awful lot of them actually really know what their political positions are beyond, oh, I just want Labour to win, therefore, oh, well, Starmer won an election, yeah, he's really good, I like the direction he's going, and they're not really saying anything. In fact, this guy's trying to say the same thing and is then going into detail actually on how Starmer's quite bad. It's pretty amazing.
David Lammy did a very good speech yesterday.
Okay, never mind, I take it back, they are idiots. This was an argument he thought was very good in his speech, by the way.
That I stand here also as a black man, whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of a gun to be enslaved, whose ancestors rose up and fought in a great rebellion of the enslaved. Imperialism, I know it when I see it, and I will call it out for what it is.
Now, to be fair to him, I have absolutely no problem with him being anti-Russia and anti-Russian invasion of Ukraine. I will say that this part unfortunately overshadowed the rest of what was an alright speech. But saying my ancestors were enslaved and were part of a rebellion, which I don't know exactly where his family were enslaved, but that's only kind of true if he went to Haiti, which I don't think he comes from Haitian slaves. But never mind him getting details of his ancestry quite wrong. Saying that my ancestor, even if his ancestors did do a full-on rebellion against slave masters, that is not exactly a reason to say I know imperialism when I see it. Anyway, as I say, that speech was like 3-4 minutes long, something like that. That was the only really bad part of it. The rest of it was all right. So from that, basically, I'm saying I wouldn't say it was a great speech, but it was okay.
I think when you've got like kind of cultural movements in Glastonbury going for Corbyn, I think it is because ordinary people feel a sense of hope about the Labour Party and about politics, and there just hasn't been that in the last 5 years, to be honest.
Well, I know in a personal capacity I was quite like that for Truss. But moving on from that as well, actually, even Aaron Bastani's been having to say this. There's actually a bit of a cultural touchstone with Zoomers when it comes to Nigel Farage. And I honestly think he has more of a chance of having more staying power with them. The main reason for that is that, frankly, Nigel Farage is just more normal. That's probably the way I'd put it. He is a normal rich man, and people quite like that. He is a man who likes to go to the pub, he likes to have a smoke outside. I'm sure he'd rather have one inside. He is a man who is truly countercultural, but certainly more so than Corbyn. You will not see Nigel Farage on the stage of Glastonbury. You will not see him being invited to speak at all these socialist events, to speak at Black Lives Matter events. No. Effectively, he will have absolutely no astroturfing whatsoever. He will instead have to fund himself through his own money and obviously through other benefactors. And it's allowed him to do a much more remarkable thing than Corbyn ever did, which was get 5 seats in a first-past-the-post system. Basically the first time he was actually trying to properly win an election. In a complete rush as well, and after saying, oh no, I'm not going to be party leader, he turned it around. Why did he turn it around? Because he is genuinely countercultural and a genuine cultural touchstone for an awful lot of people, especially for some reason Zoomers and Boomers. It seems to be the two ends of the age scale that are pushing him, which is quite good to see. Whereas Corbyn was very much just trying to mobilise the student vote and the weird older socialist vote.
I think that the Labour Party now is doing a lot of things for young people, but we're not telling anyone we're doing it, and we're not doing enough as well.
Hang on, let me get that right. So you just said, oh, Labour's doing loads for young people, we're just not telling them. Oh, by the way, we're barely doing anything for young people. What? This guy perfectly encapsulates vibe-based politics that I've been talking about this whole time. He just said two completely contradictory things that sound good on camera. He basically tries to get everyone he can in a big net at once, and it makes him sound absolutely moronic. I'll support Labour because we're doing an awful lot for young people, you just don't know about it. Okay, that gets people that are, bloomers, I guess, the type that are looking forward to the future. And then he's like, oh, what about the doomers, though? Okay, don't worry, we're also actually going to do more for young people as well. He's tried to catch everyone and just contradicted himself. And there is no way he is going to give an example of either one of these, by the way.
And I think that's why there's just not that same level of support that there was 5 years ago.
See, no examples, just, yeah, Jeremy Corbyn was better because he offered them everything, but we're going to offer you other things. I know we're not doing enough, but we are offering you things. Which is it?
So I'm on the higher range of young people, and I've gone through the phase of being extremely socialist, being, shouting out at the world.
Well, I certainly hope you grew out of not only acting like a rabid socialist, but also actually being one. What are your opinions now? I mean, you're still in the Labour Party, so you've not quite left the asylum.
And I think Corbyn attracts those kind of people.
Corbyn attracts idiot young people like I was is a hell of an endorsement. I mean, obviously she seems to want to get away from that part in her life, but my god. I would love to actually know what her opinions are now, but I suppose they only asked her what she thinks of Corbyn.
Inspired by Corbyn's leadership in the sense that he was radical, and I think that it's always been the case that young people have been attracted towards radical politics.
Again, like I said at the beginning, I think that's just a ridiculously modern thing. Even in George Orwell's time, when he was writing up about leftist intellectuals who hated Britain, he never described them as overwhelmingly being young. As I said before, I think that's just a result of half of people going to university. Radicalism really seems to be a purely academic thing. And, you know, I think the boomers are right. I think that's basically because academics don't know the real world, because they are very sheltered in their universities.
But I think that, you know, I must admit, when I was younger, when I was about 15, I did quite like Corbyn.
One thing I think I'm underappreciating here is that effectively what a lot of these young people have actually turned into is another type of career politician. A lot of them will have joined the Labour Party, yes, because of Corbyn, but what's the reason they're staying on now, even though Corbyn's been thoroughly and utterly rejected? Basically, they either want to be a part of the Labour machine, be a piece of Labour staff that basically just is there to take commands from people like Sue Gray to keep the party running, I guess. Or they're trying to be MPs. I imagine them are a lot more ambitious than the former of the choices there. But I suppose I've got to bear in mind that's why an awful lot of them actually aren't really, you know, they're saying a lot of words but not really giving me a lot of substance. It's because, yeah, these are our next generation's politicians. And when I say it's going to get worse, apparently it's going to get a lot worse than I thought. I thought they'd be improving under Starmer, but no. They literally have nothing of substance to add here.
Speaking about the removal of those more socialist voices from Labour that attract young people, Keir Starmer removed the whip from a couple MPs for voting against the child benefit, to remove the child benefit cap. What do you make of that?
Finally, we get to hear how socialist or non-socialist this woman is now.
That is a great question.
Oh my god, you see what I mean? Already you can tell that this woman is trying to become a next generation Labour MP. She's doing it right though, butter up the interviewer. That's genuinely a good way to start off your answer.
Whether I agree or not, I don't really wish to say on interview.
Right, so she basically agreed. I mean, how obvious do you want to make it? Yeah, you obviously agree with the people who got their whip removed because they're against the continuation of the two-child benefit cap. But I'd love to see how you've just made that obvious and how you're going to weasel out of that.
But it has angered people, and I do see the arguments where people would leave because of that. Do I think he should restore the whip? Personally, yes. But that's all I'm going to say on that.
Garbage. You're exactly what I expect for the next Labour politician. Absolutely no political instincts, absolutely no sense of intrigue whatsoever. About as opaque as a broken window.
I mean, one of those controversial decisions was to suspend the whip from MPs like Zara Sultana for voting to remove the two-child benefit cap. What do you think that says about his leadership?
I think that sends a message to MPs that, you know, this is not the same party as under Corbyn. You know, we vote, we are one, we are unified. You know, we vote as a force, as a party. And personally, if you're not going to vote in the way the party want you to vote, maybe don't stand under that manifesto. That's just what... I don't know, maybe I'm a bit wrong about that.
Another guy who'd be completely useless as an MP. I get they're young and all that, but my god, at least have some conviction in your opinions. You're literally on the side of the party and you still don't have the fortitude and endurance to say, yeah, obviously vote with your party if we have a whip system. If you don't, you get kicked out and deserve it. No, he starts to say, maybe I'm wrong though. Ugh. Honestly, you read about 19th century politics and how Disraeli and Gladstone acted. They'd never stand for anything like this.
Personally, I'm more of a moderate Labour supporter. I'm not, you know, far left. I think if we could have more left-wing policies, that'd be great, but I understand that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are making the decisions necessary that they have to.
See, that's better. That's the type of answer you should be giving.
You know, we've got to make tough decisions when we are in government, and I think Keir Starmer has said we are a party of government and not a party of protest, and I think that's really important.
Service, not protest, but yes, they are indeed in government now, and it's been an embarrassing show so far. I mean, Even the people on Twitter I saw saying, oh, they've had 100 days in government, here are all their achievements. All it basically is they've set up a hell of a load of new quangos, and that's basically it. Okay, they managed to stop the riots as well, but I think no matter what you did, those riots would have only lasted a day. And all it's made people, and all it's done is made the two-tier Keir moniker stick. People are talking a hell of a lot more about these scandals that have been in place so far after years and years and years of Labour saying we won't be like that. Turns out they're actually exactly like that. Oh, but the amount of money they took was less. Oh, no money changed hands. As if that was ever the problem. No, the Tory money scandals were always the fact that they were taking donations. They didn't. Declaration of them really didn't matter. All the declaration seemed to be was, oh, they're just trying to hide it. And for some reason, when the corruption is out here in the open, the answer is, oh, yeah, well, I declared it. What did I do wrong? As if that was ever the argument. Thousands of pounds worth of Taylor Swift tickets, a free Arsenal corporation box, which is £5,000 to £6,000 a go. Pathetic replies to all this. For some reason, constantly using Lord Ali's accommodations. The man seems to have bankrolled literally millions and millions of pounds into Labour, and he gets a free number 10 pass. I'm not being funny, but you can try and cope and seethe and say, oh, Labour have done a good job, look at all these achievements, but nobody cares. Because ultimately, all they come across is massive hypocrites in exactly the thing they said they wouldn't be to win the election. So yeah, people are already fed up with it. There've already been polls out saying that people preferred the last Conservative government to this Labour one. How do you screw up that badly? They've screwed up so badly the SNP are making a comeback. Like, it's embarrassing. And I don't expect any of these people to acknowledge that while being interviewed at conference, because one, obviously, big positive vibes there. Two, you're on camera and don't want to say, yeah, the Labour Party is embarrassing if your, one goal in life is to become a Labour MP. So you'd at least expect some more snide remarks on that front, especially with all these people claiming to be socialists, but no, they appear to be at least smarter than that.
If I was to ask you to describe Keir Starmer in a couple words, what words come to your mind?
Okay, that's a good question.
Okay, you've already buttered up the interviewer once. You don't actually need to do it any more than that. To be fair to her, if she's using that type of tactic to say that's a good question, to give her thinking time, fair enough. But yeah, you've got to learn different ways to do that rather than just repeating the same line.
Keir Starmer, I think that he is charismatic.
I mean, okay, I guess compared to Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, yes. Compared to Boris Johnson, though, I don't know. I would not say that Keir Starmer is charismatic.
Powerful leader.
Yeah, I suppose he's done a pretty good job of whipping the party into shape. He's whipped them into a shape that everyone seems to hate, but, we'll ignore that.
An election winner.
Yeah, it's technically true that he won an election. In pure number of seats, yes, he did very well. In terms of the vote share of the nation, really badly. And this is why I think we're going to have an early election. This is why I think he's got a government built on sand rather than stone. Nobody seems to think that Keir Starmer is actually going to be leader by the time of the next general election, despite the fact he is an election winner. Why would that be?
I describe Keir Starmer as bold, insightful, and inspiring.
Okay, you're asked for one answer. Secondly, this guy was doing the hand gestures. He is definitely going to be an MP someday. I would not call him any of those things, though. I don't find him particularly inspiring. I don't know what he's doing that's particularly bold, given that everything he's put forward is effectively what the Tories want to do anyway, just a bit slower, or at least his major policies are. And insightful, using the riots last 2 months ago now, his reaction to them, no, not really. He didn't really care to be insightful at all in that case. He just wanted to blame it on this mysterious far right and not really have any insight into why it actually happened. So, yeah, that's 3 strikes you're out. You'll be a great Labour MP.
Professional. That's the word I go for. I wouldn't say boring. I feel like a lot of people would say boring. But he's the main positive of Keir Starmer, I would say, is that at least he's taking the job seriously, unlike the Tories before.
Oof, that is a quote that is already coming back to bite him. He certainly looks the part of being professional. That's probably because he's had over £30,000 spent on his clothing by Lord Ali, which again apparently isn't in any way possible corruption. Apparently in any way is anything like what the Tories did? No. Keir Starmer is perfectly professional and uncorruptible. Yeah, right.
I don't want to be mean, but I think he's a little bit dull. He comes off a little bit dull, I think. I think he also does seem probably like quite a nice person. So I'm going to go with dull, nice.
Okay, that's quite funny editing from Politics Joe there. Having one guy say, oh, they say he's boring, but no, I think he's professional. I think he's great. Literally hard cut to a guy saying that he's very boring. I would generally agree with that. I have already made so many videos on Labour so far, and Starmer is definitely the most boring person to cover when I'm covering Labour's screw-ups. And I'm genuinely of the opinion that if politics is boring, then something's going wrong.
And if this was 2019 and Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, Boris Johnson the leader of the Conservatives, how would you have voted in that election?
In 2019, I would have voted for Corbyn in 2019, definitely, yeah.
I mean, you're asking people at the Labour conference what they would have voted when most of them are saying they joined the Labour Party like 5 years ago. Yet they obviously are all going to say Corbyn.
Our elections aren't between Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson, they're for your local MP.
I mean, correct and base, this guy's just correct. Unfortunately, yes, we do have a massive Americanisation problem in Britain where everyone thinks of elections as between leaders of each party, where it's more of a presidential election, when in reality, yeah, you can only and are only voting for who your local representative is, which is why I think more people should at least give a chance to independence. But obviously the two-party system's entrenched. It has been entrenched for 2-3 centuries. So good luck getting rid of it now. Although, genuinely, we probably are at the best point in time to try and get rid of it.
And, you know, I'm lucky enough to have had brilliant Labour MPs. My current Labour MP is Alison McGovern, who's brilliant. So, you know, I think I'd support my Labour representative.
Man, what a shock he would have voted Corbyn.
I agree, like, my Labour candidate was absolutely fantastic. I was proud.
Don't care, you would have voted Labour, I get the idea.
I think I probably still would have voted Labour, potentially. Purely because Boris Johnson, I thought, was a very, very bad Prime Minister. But I would have still been very critical of Corbyn's leadership, even if I did end up voting for them.
No details on that, but I have no doubt that one of the biggest things he would have brought up for Boris being bad was the sleaze. I wonder if he's critical of Starmer's sleaze. No, of course he isn't. Anyway, that was all the idiot kids talking there. Let's now move on to the other video. This one is called Asking Socialists Why They Like Keir Starmer. This might be quite a bit more interesting. You certainly have a larger age range to ask people from. And I just hope to get better answers than I did from all those kids who really didn't want to be critical of Starmer. Right, let's get into it.
Is Keir Starmer a socialist? I believe he is.
Well, he can describe himself as whatever he wants.
He's an absolute socialist.
He would never actually want anyone to think he's a socialist, because then you wouldn't have like Amazon and Meta and BAE Air Defence Systems sponsoring every event.
It says capitalism, bad, do not recommend, because the whole problem with society now is capitalism.
Okay, so far I absolutely hate all of these people. Though I have to say it is very interesting that all these people are idiots saying the quiet part out loud. Like, okay, I follow politics. I know Starmer's a socialist. You know, you're not going to get it past me. Normies, though, an awful lot of them think, actually, no, he's more like New Labour. He's more like Tony Blair. Even after all these years, people only really hate Tony Blair because of the invasion of Iraq. They don't hate him for the real reason you should hate him, in that he completely changed the way Britain's constitution worked, the way Parliament works, and effectively enacted a massive cultural revolution. And, you know, in a socialist Fabian manner. And this is exactly what Starmer wants. And these people seem to understand that, but they're idiots in saying it out loud. Luckily, then, nobody's part of the Labour Party machine, so it's not really going to affect what Amazon thinks of Starmer. But again, it's an issue I'm seeing with Labour. They are really not politically savvy, and I really think they are going to be shooting themselves in the foot throughout the next 5 years, 3 years hopefully, and they're really not going to do well next election. Genuinely, next election's anyone's game. It could be the Greens who win. We don't know.
The only people that are left are just, like, I don't think they're very political. I think they just want to have a briefcase and wear a suit, and they like I think they just like the idea of politics.
Okay, I'm going to be absolutely fair here. That guy is actually on the money, especially with all those young people. They are exactly the type of people who just went there to dress in business attire and try and get a place within the party machine, whether that be as a staffer or whether that be as an MP. And listening to all the younger people, yeah, he's right. They don't know a thing about politics. It's just, oh, I'd vote Jeremy Corbyn. Why? I hate Tories. They're there because they hate the Tories. That's why an awful lot of people join Labour. But as we are seeing being anti-Tory for 14 years does not get you a good government. In fact, somehow it gets you a worse government than the Tories. Again, this government is so bad that the SNP are making a comeback. Like, I don't know how that has happened, but they've managed it.
Keir Starmer a socialist? I believe he is. But then again, the spectrum of socialism, I think, is wide. And there's a position for several of us who are a little bit more to the left of Keir. And I believe we're a socialist as well as he is.
Okay, I kind of hate this guy more than I did when he originally said Starmer's a socialist. Effectively, this is the type of person that would say you're socialist if you're for the NHS. And that is a mind bug that has absolutely ruined politics in the country. You are not a socialist just because you think the NHS is a good idea. Most people think the NHS is a good idea because we have it, and that's the only way they conceive of having a healthcare system. That doesn't make you a socialist. That means you're completely uninterested in the minutiae of how the healthcare system works. And while I still think Starmer's a socialist, he's kind of copped out by basically saying, well, if you're part of Labour, obviously you're a socialist. Like, what a lame answer.
My problem I've got at the moment is I don't believe Keir Starmer is a socialist. I think he's what we would call a social democrat.
Yeah, no, don't worry, that's still a socialist. Hate to break it to all you SDP people, but yeah, you are socialist. I had someone try and tell me that there is less deficit spending in the SDP manifesto than the Reform manifesto. Like, the SDP just seems to be full of people who are right-wing Labour people. For those that don't know, that is a stupid thing to say because the Reform manifesto didn't have deficit spending, it had surplus spending. Because, again, I know they had to rush it, this probably wouldn't have been implemented, but their idea was that the civil service effectively had to cut a quarter itself off, and that would save a lot of money for other investments that they wanted to make, such as in infrastructure, in farming, etc, etc. SDP every time is just Labour light. I'm never going to vote for them. And I don't think you should either, because ultimately, I think an awful lot of our problems stem from economics, including our cultural ones. And being Labour but only for white Brits isn't the way forward, because it still gives you the problem of an awful lot of, for lack of a better term, benefit-scrounging Brits, which is still a large part of our problem.
And a social democrat believes that we can somehow manage in partnership with capitalist business.
This is the type of guy that would say that Norway is an excellent example of a socialist country, by the way, despite the fact that that is literally how Norway is run.
And we can't. It's failed under Blair, it will fail again.
Well, I mean, okay, PFI systems were bad, sure, but there was news today that Northern Rail, that's been a nationalised industry now, a nationalised railway service for 4 years at this point. News came out that it's got worse. Somehow train operators, that are private, who are using National Rail as the kind of nationalised part of the railway. Even though I somehow thought it would be worse, no, apparently that is still preferable to full nationalisation. So, yeah, I am fully on board the privatisation train, no pun intended.
Keir Starmer describes himself as a socialist. Would you agree with that description?
In the same way that I describe what I believe socialism means to me, then I believe that Keir Starmer has his own view on what socialism means to him.
It's like talking to religious fanatics, isn't it? What does that mean? Oh, well, is he a socialist? Well, if he believes he's a socialist, then he must be. The hell does that mean? There's a reason Karl Marx said that religion is the opiate of the masses, and that's because it literally stops you making socialism your religion, or communism, or Marxism, whatever. He hated it because it stopped people becoming communists. That's the only reason he hated it. And this is why, because when you do become a communist or socialist, listen to it, this sounds like me describing other Christians. But that makes sense because it's actually a religion.
Well, he can describe himself as whatever he wants, and I would partly agree with him. I'm sure there are areas where we disagree, and maybe that definition doesn't fit, but you know, socialism is a big umbrella.
They sound like people with guns to their heads, doesn't it? Is he a socialist or not? Is he a socialist? Answer it now. Maybe he is. If he thinks he is, yes, okay. Basically, these people that they were asking these questions to are full-on Corbynites and wish Corbyn was back, but they don't want to rock the apple cart too much. It's the thing that I enjoyed about the Reform Conference. Everyone seems so much more relaxed and at ease to say what their opinions are. Labour looks like it's got a load of people with knives behind their backs.
Yeah, well, he has. Look, if you're trying to be the leader of the Democratic Socialist Party, you're not going to suddenly announce you're a Social Democrat.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that Labour isn't actually a socialist party anymore. They got rid of that clause after Thatcher because they just couldn't win any elections. So I'm pretty sure they are outwardly the party of social democracy, because socialism is, thankfully, still a dirty word for a lot of people. Even as it appears, a fair section of young people, which I'm happy for. But yeah, you're right, calling yourself a socialist seems to be electoral suicide.
He's using that as a pretense. If you look at the Labour Party, we're a democratic socialist party. We are not now represented by democratic socialists.
Yeah, well done. You've realised that your entire dream and life's work have been all for naught. Nobody wants socialism. You could not win the argument. You have to make do with the terrible system we have now because you are so insistent that socialism can work, despite the fact most of our issues come from it, despite what your t-shirt says.
No, I don't think so. And I think because he sort of stood as a kind of Corbyn-ish platform during the leadership election.
What Starmer did, I don't think he did. Either way, I wanted to stop here and comment. This guy is clearly the most relaxed guy that we have actually interviewed so far. Joe have interviewed so far. And yeah, this is the most honest man we are probably going to listen to, so I'd prick your ears up.
And Tony Blair said he was a socialist when he wanted to get the leadership election. And yeah, I just think it's quite a... Also, he would never actually want anyone to think he's a socialist, because then you wouldn't have like Amazon and Meta and BAE Air Defence Systems sponsoring every event in this sort of weird... it's my first conference, so this is all very weird.
This is probably the most normal guy here as well, by the way. I mean, largely I agree. I've never been to a conference myself, but conferences do look particularly weird, especially Labour ones, with all the supercuts that Callum used to with the Lotus Eaters. And this is probably why this guy's so open about saying, yeah, I think Keir Starmer's a lie about being a socialist, because he doesn't have any ambition. He's probably there for a laugh, or if not a laugh, certainly to see how conferences are, and if he can join any Labour group that he seems interested in. But ultimately, he has no plans of getting deeper into the party machine, and so therefore this is literally the most honest person that they are probably going to interview.
Last year, when we were very much seen as the party who would be in government, and this year, when we are the party in government, it's inevitable that these people will seek to speak to us and influence us. And obviously, we want an industrial strategy, so we're going to be speaking to them.
I mean, yeah, that's all just sensible. Why are all these mega corporations coming to Labour? Yeah, because they're in power. And it's something that I really want to move away from. The main reason in, say, the Victorian era, you'd have large businesses or businessmen talking to politicians was because of foreign interests. Generally through the Victorian period, especially after Gladstone and Disraeli, they had very much a free market, and you didn't need all these businesses talking to the Whigs and Tories, because why would they? They didn't need anything else. So you basically had a laissez-faire system. Duties and taxes were quite low. As a result, wow, businesses could grow. Wow, living standards get much better. And London has too many train stations. What do we have now? Oh, everyone has to be involved in the government, otherwise they can't get anywhere. And then obviously only big businesses can do that, so what happens? Oh, policy that only favours big business and ruins SMEs, small, medium enterprises, get put through. And that's why at Labour conferences, you're not seeing small and medium enterprises there. Yeah, it's all these big businesses. That makes socialists feel a bit off, but at least this woman's honest and saying, well, yeah, we're in a state of social democracy. The state does have a large influence over businesses and things like that, so therefore they come to influence us as well. She understands it, yeah. I don't like it, but that is the world we're in.
He's an absolute socialist, yeah. And Keir's also a pragmatist as well, so he will do things that are good for the country, and if it means that he's got to do things that some people in the Labour Party don't like.
The way my mum says it to me, my mum's always telling me off for being too. The way she said you'd rather have 50% of what you want versus 0%.
Yeah.
Again, an awful lot of these people, they're trying to basically say, I don't think Starmer is a socialist, but I can't not say he's a socialist because I might not get anywhere within the party. Again, that's an awful lot of the vibes coming from here. Whereas again, you compare this to the Vox Pop they did at Reform, and it's just night and day. You don't feel like anyone at the Reform conference is avoiding saying things because they're not going to get anywhere in Reform. No, in fact, it's quite the opposite. They're not saying things because they're scared of the consequences from society at large / the media. And despite them doing the same thing of not fully saying what they think, you can instantly tell the difference in vibes. These people feel like they've got daggers in their back. People at Reform feel like they are behind castle walls. You know, there's just a completely different vibe that's really interesting to see.
And as he's said repeatedly, and as ministers have said, there's no point in being party of protest. You've got to be in power if you want to change things.
Yeah, the pragmatic people are also quite clear as well, and quite sensible, I think. Yes, you can be an open socialist and try and be in politics all you want, but you end up like Corbyn and losing 2 elections in a row, one of them against Theresa May.
Removing the whip over the two-child benefit cap protest. What do you think of that?
I think there are pros and cons depending on your analysis and how you look at it, but...
Oh my god, boring answer. What do you think of it? Well, you know, people have different opinions. Oh my god, just answer the question.
I wouldn't say it would factor into like whether or not he's a socialist. Like, I think who knows if that's the right call?
Well,
you know, maybe there would need to be discipline. Maybe it developed bad. All these things in 5 years' time will all be like, oh well, we knew why this was right or wrong. But for now, I have no idea. So
Yeah, I'm not going to answer whether it's right or wrong, but I will say that if you're going to be a party of government, you need to have discipline. You need to get behind the party, and you all need to pull together.
Again, can you see what I mean? They already have the daggers in the back. What are they saying there? Nothing. Just complete platitudes. Oh yes, party needs discipline when they're in government. Yep, obviously, you're correct. What did you think of it though? I'm not going to say because I want to be part of this machine, and saying anything too controversial, well, that might ruin my chances of that.
When did you first become interested in socialism?
When I saw Jeremy Corbyn speak for the original leadership challenge back in 2016, maybe 2015.
I do not believe you've only been interested in socialism for 9 years. I do not believe you. What is your life story? Why did you come to socialism so late?
What was it about Jeremy Corbyn that inspired you?
There was no discredit to any of the candidates that were there, but when I saw Jeremy Corbyn spoke, he inspired me, and I've often anecdotally said that I believe he was an honest and sincere man in politics.
I don't know how Politics Joe didn't quality check that. For those of you listening, the video and the sound, they looked like they were from completely different clips. But anyway, I just don't believe this guy only got interested in socialism under Jeremy Corbyn. I think he is a Jeremy Corbyn simp and is still trying to keep that flame alive within Labour. But hey, maybe he's telling the truth, and maybe it is literally just Jeremy Corbyn saying nice things that inspired him. If that's all it takes to become a rabid socialist, then my god, we are doomed.
A lot of people would say that Keir Starmer's moved the party to the right since the Corbyn days. Would you agree with that assessment? And do you think it was necessary for the party to become electable?
Some say it moved to the right. No, I don't think it could have got any more left. I think the only way it could have gone was right.
2 questions. I think definitely he's moved it to the right compared to Corbyn. That's not a very difficult answer, as I'm sure most people would agree. Whether he needed to? Probably to win the election. Election speaks for itself, doesn't it? The answer is yes.
I mean, yeah, nothing wrong was said there. I guess thank you for that.
We are now controlled from the centre. Individual members have no rights in certain ways. CLPs cannot pick their own candidates. Everything now is controlled from the centre.
Yeah, that happened to the Tories as well under Cameron. With both parties doing that, yeah, it looks real bad. Because all that ends up happening is that you just get this reinforcing feedback loop that effectively you just get people that look professional and will be part of the party brand on. And then obviously you get the odd paper candidate who might cause you an issue. This especially happened under Corbyn quite a bit. Who were just complete and total morons. The local associations are going to know the people that they are putting forward for MP. That is obviously going to get you a better quality of MP because you're not parachuting people in from elsewhere that London want. You're getting people that, you know, they're supposed to be representing in there. And then you are double vetted, one by your local members and then 2, by the constituency itself. And now that's obviously better than just parachuting someone on in and then hoping that, oh, I'm wearing the red rosette, gets you the vote.
The Labour Party has changed its direction. It's become more electable, and the results of that are obvious in the fact that the 24 general election has shown that.
Again, yeah, this is all just obviously true. I don't know why they ask these questions. Unless someone was going to say no, I would have just cut this out.
Is that a good or a bad thing in your mind?
It is. We can achieve nothing unless we're actually in power, and it's a case of having got my first job out of school under Margaret Thatcher. I'm quite aware of the damage that Conservative policies bring to communities, the workplace and society as a whole.
Right, yeah. So you weren't interested in socialism from Jeremy Corbyn, you were interested in socialism because, depending where you're from, Maggie Thatcher may have made it difficult for your local area to continue as it was. This guy's idea of socialism is keeping, coal mining towns as effectively living museums. Yeah, I'm afraid that's not how the real world works.
Yeah, I think it's moved a lot more to the right. And I don't think, from the outside, it doesn't look like it's moved that much because Angela Rayner still has a job for now. But I've been dealing with a lot of the Labour students and Labour youth, and they're so right-wing. They all defend the Iraq War, and they're just horrible.
Okay, this very much surprises me because when I was at uni, that was the opposite. No one defended the Iraq War. Hell, there were people that thought that the nuking of Japan had absolutely no upsides whatsoever, and basically the US only did it because they were evil. That sounds very different, actually, to the Labour people I knew when I was at university. They were mental. Then again, I was at university under Corbyn, so effectively, yeah, I think this guy's right. I think most people, when they join a party in university, they try and gauge what the crowd's like, what the vibe is at the time, and then just try and fully go into that so they can get a job out of uni. That especially happens with people involved in student politics. That was very obvious when I was there. Hell, every time there was a student union president vote, every time it was the ex-president of the Feminist Society winning it. Like, the Feminist Society just ran my university student union. And, well, to be honest with you, most people only were really involved in the student union insofar as if they would join a society, they had to deal with them. But that was it. All I really remember it affecting was when I was part of the Airsoft Society. Apparently, our president, whenever he was in a meeting, was always asked, why aren't more women involved? The reason is because women don't like being shot. That was basically it. And every meeting, we'd joke about how stupid it was. Like, we can't force women to join us. Some were interested. Some even came to the first event. That's about as good as we could get it. They did not retain the membership. No, it was only men who wanted to play airsoft, amazingly.
And I worry that if that's the youth of the party, in 10 years' time, we will just become the Tories.
Well, the Tories are the most successful party in history. So yeah, I'm not surprised they want to be more like them. How do the Tories manage to stay in power? Pragmatically reforming itself. It's in the process of doing it now, actually. I'm genuinely quite impressed. Obviously, I'm a Reform member and I've joined Reform to hopefully get Reform to the place of being either in opposition or, if we're lucky, in government. Probably not going to happen, but we'll see. But realistically, why do you want to be in power as... Well, you're not in power, in the opposition. Well, it's to keep pushing the opposition party into your direction. You are their main threat. And this has been the problem with the Tories for ages. They've had the carpet ripped under them from the left wing for a century. With Labour being in power since post-World War One. Well, not in power, but certainly as the biggest opposition party. And, obviously, you want to move it to the right. It's not moving right under the system. Well, make a party like Reform. What literally happened straight after the first election? Wow. Tories move right. Oh, you wanted Brexit to happen and it's not happening? Okay, start siphoning their votes there as well with UKIP and the Brexit Party. Oh, look at that. Not only do you get a Brexit vote, you actually get Brexit. Amazing. My overall point is that I'm not a full-on never Tory ever again. I am more closely what you could describe as a REFCON or a Reform Conservative type person. I don't really care which of those two is in charge. I just want a government that is going to actually deliver for me. because I don't feel like I've really had that pretty much my entire life. I mean, apart from Boris Johnson before COVID and apart from Liz Truss. These are two, 1 month for Liz Truss, a few months for Boris Johnson. Like, things felt good in those 2 times. And I've had a taste and now I want more. But what I'm really trying to say here is that, yeah, of course Labour are going to move right. They're about as left-wing as you can get in the party system and still be popular. Reform are raising in the polls, Conservatives are moving right. It's only natural that Labour have to move right with them, otherwise they're going to see election extinction next time, which I would love to see.
Why do you think that is? That's really interesting.
I think they all want jobs.
Yeah, we heard this bit, and as much as the guy's spitting facts for over an hour now, so I'm going to try and wrap this up.
I think anyone who sort of believed or sort of felt bad about things that happen in the world, they've all left and voted Green.
Yeah, and I think what happened with Tories and Reform is going to happen with Labour and Green. I think Green is genuinely going to be the next, not necessarily opposition, but I think they're going to slowly replace Labour. And that's a bad thing, because while I think a lot of people who've answered questions, especially the young people today, are very naive, or if they're not naive, very unwilling to actually have any sort of convictions. Greens, I'd argue, are even worse. They keep saying, oh, we never had a whip system. Obviously, they've never had to. They've only ever had one MP. Every time, a bit like Labour, they get to any sort of position on councils, they do all these vanity projects, they are very, very disincentivising towards businesses, and what do you know? Oh, a lot of them go bankrupt. And not only that, but they seem to be the socialist Islamist party. There's plenty of Green candidates who are openly only part of the Green Party to have a green rosette to try and get into these council seats. And when they win, they are, all they really care about is Gaza. And Greens are the naive people who are going to leave the door open for that problem to get worse. So as much as it pains me to say, I think I'd still rather have Labour under Starmer in power than the Greens anywhere near opposition. But we're in Clown Decade, and I think that's going to be the last laugh of it. That the Greens become a serious force, and it's something that we're genuinely going to have to contend with the way Parliament works, but we'll see how that all goes.
How would you describe socialism?
Socialism is, to me, about everybody and not just a few.
Oh god, boring. Does everyone deserve to benefit from society? I don't know. I think if everyone is doing to the best of their abilities, contributing to society, then yes, obviously. But let's admit it, not everyone is. And very quickly, benefit for everyone turns into those who do not work, do not eat. And I am critical of big business. I don't like an awful lot of the decisions they make, and I don't like the fact that they get very involved in politics when there's absolutely no need to. Or there shouldn't be a need to, I should say. But that's the problem. There is a need to. It's incentivised that government and big business effectively come up with all these plans together. Because after World War II, the government started thinking we need to nationalise everything, so they did. The post-war consensus then also said, oh, when it comes to the private sector, they can't be trusted to do anything. Obviously, it's government that needs to guide the invisible hand in the market, and then they realised that effectively you're trying to fight God. Well, I say they realised. No, they haven't even realised it. But a lot of clever people did, such as Hayek and Mises in the Austrian school / Chicago school. And we are still in the process of actually trying to get, a really good version of neoliberalism out there and as the mainstream policy. However, obviously, that word's been bastardised as well. So now we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And the reality is that the thing that is best for everyone is neoliberalism as it was conceptualised back in the 1950s and 60s under Hayek. When Margaret Thatcher started moving towards it, wow, everyone's life got better, okay, people had to move out of these dying industrial towns. By no means was everything done perfectly, but when it comes down to it, saying capitalism is only for the few is just completely wrong and a complete misunderstanding of the world we're in. But this guy probably thinks we're in the most capitalist society in the world. Couldn't be further from the truth. I think we're actually one of the lowest rated free markets in Europe at the moment because we're allergic to having any sort of supply side or free market reforms because the electorate are idiots.
Benefiting everybody.
You've got quite an interesting shirt on.
Yes.
Can you tell me what it says?
It says capitalism. Bad. Do not recommend.
Why did you decide to wear that shirt?
Because the whole problem with society now is capitalism.
Yeah, in fact, he said at the start, he does think that we live in a capitalist world, which I just can't get behind. Yes, we have some industries that are largely free market, food and supermarkets and Amazon, what have you, but, we've basically become French in our regulations, and barely anyone would describe France as a capitalist utopia. Even Norway and the Scandinavian countries, their regulations are not as mental as ours, and they're the happiest people alive. Basically, I'm saying we should be more like Scandinavia and less like continental Europe.
I don't think it means like the government running everything.
I love this cope. I'm sorry, that is pretty much what socialism means. It literally means a planned economy, a centralised control of the means of production. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be the government, but what would the alternative be? Some of these people say big businesses. Okay, if they've got a monopoly, maybe you have a point, but most of them still aren't a monopoly.
That, it kind of, that's how it was like the 20th century socialist countries. But I think that I'm a believer in worker cooperatives, and I think that we have democracy in elections, and I think democracy should be spread to the workplace and the economy.
I always love the worker co-op cope as well. Like, okay, yeah, sure, some worker co-ops can work, but that's really it, isn't it? Yeah, some can work. This is the point of capitalism, in that the business should decide how it works, and, if you get a load of people together and you want to make a worker co-op, you do that. My God, though, it only seems to work in specific circumstances.
To be honest, I've come up here to highlight the fact that, yes, Starmer has changed everything, but not necessarily for the good.
Yeah, but you wouldn't think that. You're a rabid, loony-eyed socialist, so nothing but pure Corbynite socialism is what you want. Anyway, once again, what is it that people like about Starmer? Really basic platitudes. Oh, he won the election. It's basically all it comes down to. That's the only reason these people, anyone in Labour, really likes Starmer. Nothing about policy, no one even liked the direction he was going in this one. And so when it comes down to it, it turns out that effectively my brother's point of view on Starmer is true. Why do you like Starmer? He got rid of the Tories. That's all it comes down to. And now he's been in power for 100 days, and he's more unpopular than the Tories. I will ask my brother what he thinks of that. And whether he'd say, actually, yeah, I'd rather have Tories at this point. I doubt he will, but, well, he described it as it feels nice to win when the election came round. I think that feeling went away very quickly, and that feeling has clearly gone away from an awful lot of Labour supporters, even the young people that are there for a job. Anyway, it has now been over an hour. I know people like me to make 10-minute videos, but no, I'm not doing that, because I absolutely love doing these reaction videos, and there will be another one actually this week that's on a topic that I don't think many people would expect me to do. I'll go as far as saying that. But it's shill time, so tonight we have a Tosh newscast, so we'll be going through the news of the past week or so, mainly including, the Starmer sleaze scandals and the Tory leadership election, among other things. So please do come along to that. Dustborn will return, but I think it'll be Thursday this time round. I am determined to complete it, as I was literally paid to. Not by the developers, obviously, by my own torturous audience. So we will continue with that Thursday, and I think that's pretty much it for streams this week. So videos will be out as and when. Anyway, with that is everything I had for you today. So, once again, please do subscribe, become a member, all that good stuff. And once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.